he's a great comedian, and he's a bigger dude. And so a lady came up to his table afterwards one night, and she was like, I wish my husband could have heard you. That was so great. I want to get him a shirt, but I don't really know his size. Like, he's a big dude. So Aaron goes, well, I have up to 5X. And she goes, well, yeah, that might work. I don't know. He's just so big. And Aaron goes, well, if it helps, I wear a 3X. And she goes, oh, okay, give me a 2X.
At Bella Media, we believe that every person has a unique story to tell.
As a creative marketing company, we get to meet some truly fascinating individuals.
They bring us their life experiences, challenges, and incredible stories.
So join us now as we dive into real human stories like this one.
Hey, I am happy to have you here, Bob. We've got to know each other over the years, and proud to call you a friend, but you're a husband, a comedian, an author, and
male model.
Obviously.
Where do I look?
I've not seen that work yet. I trust you. Send us photos and we'll use it.
I'm working toward that. It's always good to have a goal that you're working toward once you accomplish other things.
That's good. You're a busy man. Just, the fact that you took time and could be here today, your travel schedule, looking at what's coming up, and we'll show that as well. You're always on the move, always going, and you're balanced, and you've got some older kids that are off, but you still have at least one in the house still, right?
Starting in the end of August, we will be down to one kid. Now, when I say that, our other 4 kids come home. Even my 24-year-old, he still comes home all the time to see us. I call him Laundry Claus because he comes in with a big bag, so it looks like a Santa Claus, like he's bringing gifts, but it's full of laundry. So I think the fact that as long as I have a good washer and dryer, I'm going to be able to see my kids all the time, even when they're out of the house.
I've enjoyed a lot of the videos with your kids and y'all getting crazy on the trampoline in the backyard.
All right, go ahead. But I am on record as I'm against this.
And to be able to collaborate with you on numerous projects, we have a few that we've done. Recently, we had one cancel because of Hurricane Beryl. We filmed it, produced it, so maybe we'll be able to use it in the future, but we'll show it here just to give people an idea of what we're talking about and how we've collaborated in the past.
Hi, I'm Roger Dodger. You might remember me as the lead singer of the 80s worship band Holy Thunder. We just finished our final, yeah, we really mean it this time, farewell tour.
And I'm Will, you tip me. And I was recently just the boom operator here until Mr. Dodger's co-host didn't show up.
The first video, as I mentioned to you before we started, that I filmed was you dropping your kids off at school, one of your sons at school on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
And so he was on the back. You're both safe and wearing helmets. He jumped off and you took off. I think you popped a wheelie on the way out of the church parking lot.
Yeah, the motorcycle has been really fun. When I was first starting to think about getting a motorcycle, I went to my wife and I was like, I think I want to get a motorcycle. And she was like, no, because you'll wreck and you'll die and I'll have to marry someone else. And thankfully my mother-in-law was there and she was like, I'll buy you one. And so she bought me a really fast one. And my father-in-law got me a paper mache helmet. And so I was off and running. And when Coulter, I think it was Coulter, was like going to school the first day, I was like, I'll drive you up. And when I went out to the garage, he was sitting on the motorcycle. And I was like, oh, he wants to be dropped off on the motorcycle. And so we started doing that. And I guess that's how we met.
That's cool. So that wasn't the first day of school. You just kept doing that all school
year?
Yeah,
all year because it was close to my house. I don't want to, give stalkers too much information, but it was about 1.5 miles. And so we'd jump on, put our helmets on like good, safe Americans. And we drive up there and I'd drop him off. And yeah, it was a pretty good system. And of course, all the kids at school thought it was just super cool that he comes riding up on a motorbike.
You have a message the world needs to hear, but you're not sure where to start. At Bella Media, we make podcasting easy. Our studio is open Monday through Friday, starting at just $100. You bring the story, we provide the space. Let's get your voice out there. Email us at info@bellamedia.com to book your session today. That's info@bellamedia.com.
Humor start entering your life?
Humor was a part of my life from the very beginning. My dad and his friends were always hilarious. And I could watch my dad walk into any room and he could command the room. Like he could hold court just by being funny. And I also, one of the things I picked up, because for a long time, we'll get to this, but I didn't ever think I could do comedy. I didn't, I wasn't pursuing comedy, but I just knew humor was an important part of life. I knew God gave laughter to us as a gift, and that if I could be a vessel of that, or I watched my dad be a vessel of that. And so when he got labeled as the funny guy, I noticed people would listen to him, like, no matter what he would say, they would just listen to him. And so he and his friends were just very funny. I grew up going quail hunting. I remember one of the first times that I realized I was studying comedy was we were going quail hunting out in Texas outside of Bryan. And so my dad's best friend Garner was in the passenger seat. It was like just an old pickup truck. And so it was just, one row. And so my dad was driving. I was sitting next to him. His son was sitting next to me. And then Garner was up against and Garner and my dad were just ad-libbing and just being hilarious. And I remember the kid turned to me and started to say something, and I shushed him. Now, I was probably in 5th grade, and I was like, shh, no, I want to hear this. And I remember, I was studying how they were just bouncing back and forth and just being funny. So comedy started out really early. To answer your other question, started out in Cedar Hill, outside of Dallas. My dad was a football coach. He then became a assistant superintendent, or he became a principal, then assistant superintendent. We moved to Weatherford. Then we moved to this town called Era, which is where I spent the rest of my adolescence. I see you look like, wow, I can't believe you're from Era, the big famous city. You know where Era is, right?
Tell me more.
It's by Leo, next to Munster, just down from Lindsay. I mean, come on. These are all towns with about, at the time it was about 300. Era had 281 people in it. That was our population sign. I have since gone back and done a show for the school. They are now at 302. So it's grown quite a bit. Wow. I remember I took Sarah, my wife, and to show her, because she'd heard all these stories of how small Era was, and my joke on stage is our idea of a large industrial company was a 200-pound Avon lady. Like, that's how small the town was. And but it literally, we had a store. Right next to the store was a volunteer fire department. And this is going to sound like a joke, but this is a true story. The store one day burned completely to the ground, which was right next to the volunteer fire department, and it burned completely down. And my dad and I were actually on the volunteer fire department when we were there, and our motto was save the chimney. So, we felt like, if we really focused, we could get there and save the chimney of any fire that we had. But so I took my wife there, and they had since rebuilt a gas station, and so that was the big change. That and Emma Jean, who had the post office that she ran out of her trailer, she had moved it down. She bought a new piece of land, so the post office had moved about a mile from where it was, and that was the only change. But when I walked in, I'd been telling my wife how small it was for years, and we walked in, and there was a lady paying for some snacks, and as she walked out, she just goes, "Hey, Bob." Now, I hadn't seen her in 30 years, but that's the mentality of the town. It's just like, "Hey,
wow.
How's it going?" And Sarah burst out laughing. She was like, "So this really is just a weird place." But I grew up in this very, very tiny town, and my dad was a superintendent. So my dad, again, always funny. I remember one time he came in the cafeteria, and he was like, "Hey, Bob, I got to make an announcement. Will you help me?" And I was like, "Sure." And so he had me stand up, and he goes, "Hey, kids, I just want to point out, this is what happens if you don't drink your milk." And then he just walked out, and so, but what we found out was, so my dad would come have lunch with me a lot of the times. And when my dad and I would sit and have lunch, all of a sudden we were the cool table, because every kid wanted to sit and listen to my dad. And we wouldn't plan anything out. We would just sit and talk about what we did that weekend or stuff like that. Or we would do jokes that we both knew that we would just slip into telling stories like it was real, but we would put these jokes in there and stuff. And there's an old joke that these prisoners, this new guy goes to prison, and he's, in, and after they turn the lights off and stuff, you hear people shouting out numbers out of the cell. So somebody would say, 67, and all the prisoners would laugh, and then they would say 48. And so finally the new prisoner goes, "What? I don't understand." And he goes well, we've all been here so long, we've just numbered the jokes. And he was like, okay, I want to try it. And he goes, 19, and nobody laughs. And he turns to his cellmate and he's like, is 19 not funny? And he goes, well, some people can tell a joke, some people can't. So that's the old joke. So this is an example of how I was raised around comedy. So we walk in, my dad's secretary was Miss White, who was in her late hundreds, like super old. And she was real fiery and everything. And I'm just waiting for my dad to finish doing this paperwork. And so just on a lark, I go, 19. And my dad doesn't even look up. He knows exactly what I'm doing. And he goes, 27. And we start laughing. And finally, Miss White takes the bait and she goes, what is going on? And my dad goes, oh, we've told the same jokes forever. We just say the number. We know what the joke is. And it's funny. And she took the bait right away. And she goes, 78. And my dad goes, Miss White, not in front of my son. And she was like, I'm sorry, I didn't know what 78 was. And it was just, so it was just stuff like that, like just always looking for the humor or ways to make people laugh.
So your dad, a big influencer from the beginning.
Huge.
And that attention that you were getting there, being in that circle and what you saw, that's obviously where it all started, would you say?
I would say, yeah, it definitely started with that. There was another moment in my life in second grade where they were, Miss Brown was doing a math question, and it was 5 birthday candles plus 3 birthday candles. And so she was like, she called on this kid, Lloyd, and Lloyd went up, and I don't know why he couldn't figure it out, but he couldn't really figure out how to do it. And she said, does anybody want to help? And so I was in the back where all the teachers wanted me to sit, and I raised my hand, and she was like, Bobby? And I got up, and I remember leaving my desk, walking up to the chalkboard, I'd already thought of my set list. Like I'd already thought of a joke to tell. And so I got up and I go 5 birthday candles plus 3 birthday candles. And I counted on my fingers like you did back then. And I was like, that's 8 birthday candles. Come on, Lloyd. It's a piece of cake. Which I got 0 laughs from the kids. But I remember my teacher going, just like that. It was just a very subtle little laugh. And then that day when I was leaving the classroom, she called me back over to her desk and she was like, hey, I was having a really bad morning, and I just want you to know I thought of that birthday candle joke like pretty much all day, and it really cheered me up. So thank you. So that was a big moment in my life. I walked out, even though it was second grade, I walked out going, wow, comedy is powerful. Like I changed her day with a dumb birthday candle joke. So even as I never thought I would be able to do comedy, as I was leaving, I thought no matter what I'm going to do, I'm going to use laughter to try to bring a little joy in whatever it is that I am pursuing. So that was a big moment. But then, yeah, my dad and his friends throughout were huge influences.
Tell me about your dad's progression after superintendent. Where he go off? Is he still with you today?
He is still with me today. My mom was a teacher, and then she became a principal, so they retired fairly early. They always talked about, from the moment I could remember, they talked about wanting to retire on land and sit out and drink coffee on their porch and watch deer walk through their yard. They retired. They bought a really nice piece of land out in West Texas. They sit on their front porch. They drink coffee. They watch turkey walk through their yard, deer. They've got a 10-acre lake, so they can go catch their, dinner. So they have achieved their goals in life. They wanted land and they wanted a really amazing son. So they have achieved everything that they wanted to achieve in life. They're not going to listen to this, so I can just say whatever.
Well, talk about, your mom putting up with a husband who's, the life of the party, always funny, and then compare that to your current wife now and how she puts up with you.
So my mom loves my dad. My mom loves how funny he is. She loves comedy, and she's pretty funny on her own. So it was never viewed as annoyance or oh, when's he gonna grow up or anything. She was in it. She was in, even today. She's along for the ride. And she doesn't mind jokes at her expense. She'll make jokes at her expense. I used to do a joke. I dropped it because Ron White had a similar joke. And, at the time, Ron White was huge. So I didn't want people to think I was stealing a deal. But the joke was my mom's cooking so bad, she uses a smoke alarm as a timer. And then my line was, we'd hear it go off and it'd be boop, boop, boop. And she'd be like, dinner's ready. Everybody stop, drop, and roll. Fix yourself a plate. That was my joke. Ron White had a similar joke about a smoke alarm as a timer, so I dropped it. But like, she thought that was great. Like, she thought, even though she's a phenomenal cook. So my mom was on board forever. What was your other question?
Well, so the difference between you and your father was you're always looking for content. Like in every situation, he didn't have to do that. He could just be natural and just let it flow without the pressure of, having to write bits.
Yeah.
So maybe he wasn't as consistent as you are with Sarah. I'm sure, around your house that, Sarah's had to draw some lines at times.
Yeah. So, and we're coming up on 6 years. So she's fairly new in the having a comedian as a husband. Like, she didn't start with me at the beginning and we learned how to navigate, all the pitfalls of doing comedy, talking about your real life and talking about all this stuff. And so we're kind of discovering all that I just wrote a bit, which I think is a great bit, because she works at a very, well-to-do private Christian school, and our youngest son goes there. And so I wrote a bit of how different it is with me trying to interact with these very well-to-do, wealthy people. And it's a great bit. And she was actually flying out to a show with me where I was going to try this bit. And I didn't run that bit by her. And she's like on the plane, she's reading on my computer. She's like, "What is that?" And I was like, "Oh, this is a new bit I'm going to do." And she read it and she was like, you can't do that. Like we're doing life with these people. Like, they're going to hear this bit. And I was like, yeah, but I made it absurd. Nobody has a Chick-fil-A in their house, and she was like, yeah, but that's like, and so I was like, so guess what bit I will never do on stage. So we're navigating that. Like, what can I talk about? What can't I talk about? And,
yeah. 6 years now. Congratulations on that.
Well, we're not there yet. Let's wait and see.
So we'll say congratulations for that. When's your anniversary, by the way?
December 15th is when we got married, but when we had the ceremony. The secret story is we actually got, we couldn't wait. Like, we couldn't wait. So we did counseling with her pastor. And, you fill out all the forms and all that kind of stuff. And then he looks at it and then he tells you what your pitfalls are going to be. And we met with him and he was like, you guys have already discussed all the, problems that you might have and, financial and how to raise the kids and all that. And he actually just dropped the forms in front of us. He goes, I feel great about this. I'd marry you tomorrow. And so as we left, we were like, why don't we get married tomorrow? And so we went to, their church was being built. The other church was condemned. So we went into this old condemned church and met him on October 13th. That's why I have this tattoo. So this is my great-grandfather's pocket watch that he gave me, but it's set at 10:13 to really help me remember when the anniversary. But so we got like married October 13th, but then we had the ceremony already planned. We just didn't want to wait the 2 months. So.
Very cool. And you guys now have the same pastor. We all go to the same church now.
Yeah.
And I guess during COVID, is that when you started the podcast, Hook, Line, and Smiley?
Yeah. Actually, it was a little before that. We went out to North Shore Park, and we were having a picnic, and we were just chatting. Like, Sarah and I were just chatting, and she's super funny, but she's also very insightful. She's been through a lot of life, and so she has a lot to say about any topic. And so we were sitting out there, and we were laughing, but also I was like, well, we're talking about some deep stuff, but we're also laughing about it, but also, it's some pretty heavy stuff. And she had like great things to say, and I thought, I don't need to keep this to myself. Like, I need other people to see how great she is. And so we started the podcast. And actually, I remember because we started it in 2019, and she was like, hey, it's going to be free. We're not going to ask people, we're not going to do Patreon. We're not going to ask people for money or anything. And then COVID hit, and she was like, we're going to ask people for money. We're going to ask people to help support us. And so people were great. Like, fans stepped up and, would donate. And
how many total episodes did you guys do?
Oh, that's a great question. We did, I honestly don't know. I think 50,
that's a lot.
57, 58.
It was great. What made you guys have to stop that? And is there a chance to bring it back?
We decided that we wanted to stay married. So we put a pause on the podcast. So she's great if I can get her behind the microphone. getting her to the microphone, she will have, and she'll talk about that. I'm not talking about behind her back, but she would have this anxiety because, she wanted to dive into like nothing but truth. I'm not gonna be, hey, wacky Bob Smiley, look for the joke every time. If we're talking about something serious, she wants to keep it like serious. We're gonna, and so I equate it to, how before a dog lies down, the dog has to circle around and all that. So I would set up the podcast equipment in the kitchen, and I'd be like, all right, it's time to record. And she'd be like, okay, I'm just going to go make some tea. And then I don't know if I'd turn the water sprinklers off. I'm just going to check that. And she literally would just like circle around. But then as soon as she would sit behind the mic, she was brilliant. But there was a lot of stuff with that. Also, blending a family was way harder than I thought it was going to be. And so we were dealing with a lot of issues. And so we decided like something's got to give. But it took me a while to edit it and, to put it out. And then obviously the recording and stuff. And so we were like, something's got to give. And so this is probably one of the things that we can give up for now. But man, I still have people coming to my shows that know us from Hook, Line, and Smiley. And they're like, hey, are you guys bringing it back? What's going on? So I think... Dylan just graduated, and so we're down to one kid. So I think in August, our lives are going to look totally different. So I think we might, entertain the possibility of it coming out.
Because you guys also did a lot of prep work prior to the episodes. We're talking about current events. You always had a topic and things. So I know there was a little bit of time before the episode that you were preparing with, but I think that, we had a conversation before about how much time it was taking you afterwards to get it cleaned up and the work that goes into doing that stuff. Even if it was just the audio version, you were still doing, a little bit of cleaning. And I think that listening to your audience and giving them what they want, and if you could find a healthy way to do that to bring you guys together and make it a positive thing for each other. Because from the very beginning, you talked about using comedy as therapy, with your second grade teacher, and your podcast does the same thing too. So I want to encourage you in that. And if we can help and give you the space to do that, then, think about that as well to make it even easier on yourself.
Well, I could barely get her to the kitchen table. I can't imagine getting her here.
If you entice her with her favorite, Danish or whatever here, maybe you can get her up here.
Yeah. If you have Earl Grey tea, like we can get her here. Cool. Now she does have a huge passion. She feels like God has given her, something to say, because again, she's had a lot of bumps in the road in life, and so a lot of the things that she has to say was really helping people, and she knows that, and so she does have, every once in a while she'll bring it back up, and we'll be like, all right, well, let's see what our lives look like. And a big part is, even though I look like I'm wild and crazy and all that, I also am a perfectionist. So I was spending way too much time editing. I was taking out every little pause, just trying, okay, let's pack it all in. And people don't really necessarily need that in podcasts. People are fine with long pauses in a podcast.
Yeah. So let's talk about timing.
Okay.
Because that's really important, something that you're really good at, obviously. You need to have that timing for your bits and for them to work and be most effective. But in conversations with people, like, with Sarah, for instance, how many times have you stuck your foot in your mouth because of just bad timing? You saw the bait, you couldn't help but just take it and jump through it and then regretted it.
8 times. Do you just mean this morning? Because 8 so far this morning. Yeah. She will. I actually have a tattoo of one of my favorite cartoons. So this frog, Michigan J Frog, the whole storyline is this guy finds him. He's a performer, and he's singing "Hello, my baby." We have copyright issues, I'm sure, so I won't sing the whole song. And I'm sure everybody that's heard me sing is really appreciative of that. But and so he buys a theater, and he's like, "I'm going to make millions." This frog, and they put the frog on the stage, and they open up the curtains, packed house, and the frog just sits there because the frog only wants to perform on his own schedule. And so Sarah adopted the phrase, like, I just like the ribbit. Like, I like you, just sometimes I just want the ribbit, not the, hello, my, And so, yeah, sometimes she does have to be like, hey, guess what? You're not on stage. Look at your hand. There's no mic. Like, let's just calm down. But yeah, timing, that's been a not a struggle, but my brain's constantly thinking of funny things. And so I want to say it, But then I got to realize, oh, there's times, just like it says in the Bible, there's a time for everything. So I got to, really, if we're talking about something serious, I got to kind of try to quiet the joke machine part that wants to spit stuff out. My favorite story about timing is I used to tour with this band called the Supertones, and Matt Merginski, his nickname was Mojo. He and I would get off the tour bus every morning, and the runner would take us to the hotel. And so we would get in the back seat, and the driver would be in the front, and we would do this joke every single day. We'd start driving and it'd be super quiet, and Mojo would be like, "Smiley, why are you so funny?" And then we wouldn't say a word, and it would get uncomfortable, and the driver would be like, "Why isn't he answering him?" And as soon as we'd pull up to the hotel, I would go, "Timing." And then we'd get out and shut the doors, and the driver would realize, like, oh, these guys are jerks. But that was my favorite thing to do as far as time. Why are you so funny? And then just the longest pause, and then timing.
So if we could read your mind, of course it'd be a mess, because I'm sure there's bits that just are constantly going out that get discarded immediately because of being inappropriate or whatever. Mm-hmm. But can you think of a time that you couldn't help yourself and instantly regretted it?
No, because I'm pretty good about trying to filter, because I'm a Christian, so I start by trying to filter myself as I want to be Christ-like, so that helps. And then I try to filter myself as a comedian of, I want to keep my career. So I don't want to say anything that, I will lose out on that. So I have kind of two layers of filter. There has been times where I've done jokes that I didn't think had the possibility of hurting. Okay, this is a great example. So I'm doing Atlanta Fest, and it's my second year doing stand-up. I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't even know why I got invited to do this big festival, but I go out and they want me to do a 20-minute set on the main stage, which was kind of unheard of. And it was like 3:00 in the afternoon. So it's just, boiling hot. There's not people. It's not super crowded. You see people throwing frisbees. There's a sumo wrestling suit, thing going on to the side, and the bands are, sound checking their guitar before they go on next. So there's all this chaos and stuff, and I'm up there just frantically just throwing jokes out there. And I did the joke about Era, about the small town. I said, our idea of a large industrial company was a 200-pound Avon lake. And I hear this lady to my right, stage right, go, "That's not funny." And I turn and I look, and she's got a, whatever it was, 200-year anniversary Avon shirt on, and she's huge, and she just goes, "That's not funny." And there was only probably maybe 600 people at the festival at that time, but most of them heard her and turned and looked and saw what was going on, and I just start flop sweating, and I'm like, "You're right, it's not. I'm going to tell you about my grandmother." And then I just switch, because I don't know what I'm doing year two.
Yeah.
And so there's been moments like that where I realize, oh, maybe I need to scan the audience before I throw jokes out there.
Well, the fact that you have a filter, then you are, being cautious of that. This is your lane. You're good at being funny. You've got those ideas. You've come with, scripts and, just been perfect. And then I find myself, interjecting sometimes and, trying to throw in a little bit, not realizing, this is what he does. Just let him do it.
Yeah.
And then in reverse, when you have people come in here and say, well, what if you shot it like this? Or what if you shot it like that? And there's that line of wanting to be humble and listen to what you're saying, but you are really good example of just letting people speak into it, whether you take it or not. You still listen. You mentioned about having a writers meeting the other day where you just kind of critique each other.
Yeah.
When it comes to feelings and letting people express their bits, and you being critical of their bits, does it get personal with you sometimes? So when those other writers are giving you feedback?
That's a great question. And I love that I can honestly say no, it doesn't at all. I think that's why I love working with you, is because we each have our strong suits. Like we have our things that we're good at. I'm really good at writing a joke or thinking of a punch up, or, I can sit down with a script and I can make it funnier just by reading through and then immediately thinking of, oh, this would be funny, this would be funny. That's my strong suit. Visually, how to shoot something to make it as funny as possible, that's not my strong suit. So, but you guys are great at that. Whenever we're setting stuff up, you'll say, hey, well, we can shoot this. Well, a lot of times I don't even know you have the capability to shoot, with the green screen. You can put stuff up there that I don't even know about. So I come in with, I know what I feel like I'm good at, but there's so many things I'm not good at. And so, like the writers' meeting, I write with a guy named Robert G. Lee. And so he's not great at like punch ups, like, punch, 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 punch. He's great at structuring a comedy special. So I'll give him a bit, and he'll be like, no, you need to explain this first, like to set this up, or you need to move this part down here because it's more of a reveal. And so he's very good at structuring an entire comedy bit where I'm like, I want to laugh for every 30 seconds, I need to have a big laugh, and so I'm looking at it like that. So I actually I feel like I work pretty well with other people because I'm super open because we all have the things that we're good at. And if we can just bring them in and mix them all together, we're going to make a pretty good cake.
Yeah, what you had mentioned, some collaborations that we've done together and working together, and I think it's a perfect time to introduce our first sponsor for this episode. It's a product that you invented, and you let us shoot the promo video for it. You remember what
I do.
Yeah, tell us about that.
That was a idea that we came up with when we first got married, and Sarah still found me amazing. And she was like, I just want to just be with you all the time. And so whenever I had my first son, had a baby Bjorn, which is a little satchel that you carry your baby around in. And so it started with her saying, I wish you could shrink me down and just put me in your backpack and stuff. And I was like, well, they need to have a product like that. And so we designed the first spouse Bjorn.
Are you newly married and ridiculously in love?
See, we don't need a lawnmower. We have love and scissors.
Oh, cut it out.
Are you so madly in love that you don't want to spend even one single minute apart from each other? Well, sometimes life can get in your way. Hectic schedules and responsibilities can take away from time together. That's why the makers of Baby Bjorn got involved. Introducing new Spouse Bjorn. Now you can carry your spouse anywhere you go. Running errands, doing chores, cooking, and even working out. Plus, new Spouse Bjorn has considered the latest quarantine and have added reinforced straps. You can now take your spouse anywhere, and the new Comfort Fit design is perfect for nap time. Act now as supplies are limited, and by that we mean we've only made one. Spouse Bjorn is a product of BobSmiley.com and Ding Enterprises, and a proud sponsor of the hit podcast Hook, Line, and Smiley. Order yours today.
I love that video.
Genius. I'm sure that you're just sitting on mountains of money from the product sales from that. So.
I think we got 6 views that weren't traced back to my family. So I feel like the video did pretty well. I need to re-release it because I've had a huge amount of new followers. Like I've kind of almost doubled my social media footprint since we filmed that. So I probably should re-release that because I did put it out there and I was expecting it to blow up. And like at the time, I just didn't have the footprint that, all my comedy buddies have. And so, but it was brilliantly shot. I used to tour with Third Day, and Third Day, they're phenomenal guys. But they'd be like, you got to have jokes that you can't tell on stage. And I was like, well, about 2 hours of them. So they would have me get up on the tour bus after the shows and do like 3 minutes of stuff that, and it wasn't dirty because again, we're all Christian men. Like we're not going to do anything that's filthy, but there's stuff that's a little over the line. So I would get up on the tour bus and do it. And so I had this alter ego called Slob Biley. And so Slob Biley would get up and do the material that he couldn't really do on the church stage for the band. And they love that stuff.
You've been extremely generous with different things that I've watched you do. One of those was during COVID. Everybody's stuck in their house, and you did a bit up on stage at the church that we were able to live stream for everybody at home. One of my favorite bits that you've done or sets that you've done, and that had to be one of the first times you've done that long of a set without a live audience.
It was the first time. It was the very first time. Good morning, everybody. Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. No, I'm just kidding. There's actually nobody in this building. Like nobody is looking at me, paying attention. It's a lot like my senior prom, but I'm very excited. I actually love talking in the morning because my voice sounds more like a man. when COVID hit, I was sitting in my office, and in a day and a half, I had 73 shows cancel. Like just boom, 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 boom. And I was like, oh, what am I going to do? And then our pastor reached out to me, and he was like, hey, we want to have something. We can't just not do anything. Would you come to the church, and we'll film you doing some stand up, but also with a message, so like a sermon. And so I went up there. I had no idea how it was going to go. The pastor's wife, who's the sweetest person, but she sat in the back. Were you there?
I was filming it. Yeah.
You were filming it. Okay. So I was still just getting to know everybody, but so I guess it was you. And then do you remember she was sitting and she was writing on a clipboard, but there was no audience. And I'm trying to do stand up to keep people interested so they can hear my message. And every once in a while she'd just look up and go, and then right back. And that was it. It was just, and you talk about timing. It is so difficult to be able to know what people are laughing at when you can't hear them. So you still have to put in pauses. You can't just walk over the laughs, but you're putting in pauses hoping that people at home watching it later are laughing. That's why when I first started doing stand-up, I didn't know how to do it. I kind of just got thrown into it. And so I had a Mr. Microphone. Anybody? No? And I had a boombox. Anyone? No? I ordered it through my beeper. No? Okay. So I love having a young audience. This is so great. So I had a Mr. Microphone that would connect to your boombox, one of the radio channels. And I thought the best way to learn my full hour show would be to speak into it, like perform it, record it on a cassette tape. Huh? Oh, okay. We got one nod. Cassette tape, and then listen back to it. And then I realized quickly that's the worst way because you're listening to you do stand-up with no feedback. So the whole time I'm listening, I'm like, oh, this stuff is terrible because it had zero feedback. And I felt like I was back in my kitchen with my Mr. Microphone when I was at that church doing that deal. It was very awkward.
I can't imagine, without having that response back. But I will say that I enjoyed it. So, I didn't want to mess up the recording and be the only laughter they had.
Yeah.
So it was hard. Honestly.
Well, you did a great job not laughing. I mean, you were on your game that day. He actually told me, he was like, it's going to be awkward because there's not going to be an audience. But I'm looking out, and there's actually two cameramen that are on their phones, evidently playing a game right now. So it's not too different from my comedy shows. Like, I didn't
behind
hear
the camera. I didn't want to distract you.
And he laughs.
But yeah, thanks for just being brave enough to do a set like that because that's not obviously your normal. And so what was your takeaway from that? Was it like I'm never doing that again, or what was the takeaway?
I don't know. Here's the deal. I never thought I would end up where I am today. Again, I wasn't pursuing comedy, so the fact that I've had a 26-year career doing stand-up. Man, all bets are off. I've already done way more than I thought I would ever do. So anytime all my comedian friends, like, they always rib me like, Smiley takes any gig. He takes any gig, junior high lock-in, 4 a.m. right before the shaving cream fight. Smiley's there. But I walked off stage like, I hope that went well. I hope, that helps people, encourage people, because people are stuck at home. I knew depression was going to probably start being a big deal that people were dealing with because, they're isolated. And so I walked off that stage like, okay, I don't know how it went, but I hope it helped, and I'll do it again if I need to. Yeah. I did a lot of that kind of stuff. I remember, so 2 days after that event, I did my first Zoom show, and it was a group called, they called themselves 55 or Better. But there was nobody there that could remember being 55. Like, they were all
much better,
way, way better. But to their credit, they were all on Zoom. One couple actually were on Zoom on their phone, and they had their phone mounted on their dashboard in their car, and they were driving around because their ministry is they feed stray cats in San Antonio. Wow. So I didn't know if I should mute the crowd so that they weren't distracting, or if I should leave it up. So I could hear the feedback. And so that first Zoom show I did, I left the mics up so I could hear the laughter and stuff. But you see this elderly couple driving around, and they're listening to me and they're laughing. But then every once in a while you'd hear him go, there's one, mama. And they'd put it in park, and they would open the doors, and they would disappear from their little screen. And I'm up there doing stand-up, like trying to keep this, all these little square of people. And then you hear, here, kitty, 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 kitty. And they would get out and feed cats while I was doing my show. So, yeah, you never know what you're going to end up doing. But the fact that I'm just still up there trying to do it seems like a blast.
You had mentioned your father a little bit. What'd you get from your mom?
My mom just loves unconditionally. Like, she just loved me, and my brother, like, just, and she's always aware of what other people need, or she's always thinking of what other people need. And so I gleaned a lot of that personality from her, even to the point where when I get on the airplane, I want to immediately put my stuff up and then sit in my seat, because I don't want people waiting on me. I don't want to inconvenience people. I get criticized from a person in my life who I will not name, but she thinks I drive like an old man because I don't want to create, and so my mom was always like that. She never wanted to be a bother with anybody, but she always wanted to help and make people's lives better. So just very compassionate, loving woman, even to this day, like, just amazing.
And what a good mix you got there between the two. So let's talk about their beliefs, and then did you grow up in a Christian home? Mm-hmm. And then when did you hear about Jesus?
I grew up in a Christian home. I heard about Jesus all the time from the very beginning. It's a very boring testimony. My best friend, Tim Hawkins, who's a comedian, which if the viewers don't know, they need to look him up. He is the second best Christian comedian out there. But he has a bit. He's like, my testimony's so boring. I listen to these other testimonies and I'm like, man, I wish I was addicted to crack, which is a great line. But honestly, like, that's how a lot of us feel growing up in a Christian home. It's pretty boring. Because, I never had any big falling away or anything. When I went through the divorce, it got a little dicey, but even then I never abandoned my faith or anything. But my parents raised me. They also realized I was strong-willed, and so I don't even know how they did this, but they didn't force it on me where I felt like I needed to rebel. They had an amazing relationship with Jesus, and that was their foundation. And they wanted me to have that foundation, but they weren't really forced. So we didn't get up and do Bible studies every morning, devos and stuff. We went to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday. We would pray before meals and stuff like that, but they didn't really force it on me all the time. They lived a good Christian example in front of me, and I respected my parents so much that I think that was the best way to raise me, is not forcing me, let's wake up early and have a Devo or that kind of stuff. They just lived a godly life in front of me, and because I respected them so much, I was like, well, if this is their belief, I want to look into it. So I found myself more drawn into it because I was like, I want to be like these two amazing people in my life. So yeah, but grew up in church, grandparents, great-grandparents, all Christians. I read the Bible early on. I started reading it. I read books like crazy when I was a kid. And so, like, when I found out there were wars and all this kind of stuff in the Bible, I was like, oh, this is pretty interesting, and so I dove into it. So just kind of a Christian throughout.
Your parents, letting your faith be your faith and not your father's faith, your mother's faith. Yeah. And as you start to progress and life starts to happen and it's not going, maybe the way that you thought, and divorce enters the picture, what did that do for your faith, but then also what did that do for your comedy?
I can look back on that now and be like, it strengthened my faith. Because for years I would travel around and stand on stage and I'd be like, man, God can get you through anything. God's right there. But again, I grew up in a loving Christian home. I didn't really have any trouble. I went to college. I was going to be a teacher, and then all of a sudden got this weird offer to do stand-up. And so, 2 years into it, I'm on tour with the Newsboys. Like, it was a pretty charmed life. I had to work hard while I was doing it, but it was a pretty charmed life. And then all of a sudden, like, not only is my wife leaving, but our best friends are also getting divorced, and I'm seeing like total betrayal in friendship and in a spouse. And, it rocked my world. Nobody saw it coming. Probably should have, but just, blindly think, people are focus on the right things and stuff. And then, so when I was a single dad, I never said to myself, there is no God or anything. But the thing I would say is, why aren't you here? I felt like he wasn't there. I felt like he like forgot about me, or turned his back on me for a while or something. So my faith, I never lost my faith, but I felt like I was shut in a closet in a dark whatever basement or something, and God wasn't there. And that was the first time in my life that I didn't feel God's presence. I didn't want to talk to him. I didn't want to pray. I didn't want to read the Bible, because I didn't want to read how great God is and, how he can deliver you from stuff, because I literally was just in the valley of depression. But I knew he was still real. I knew he was still like a presence. I just felt like the presence was no longer in my home. So that was a real struggle to try to figure out, like, how do I get back into that relationship when honestly I really didn't want to, because I was kind of bitter. Like, how could you let this happen, not only to my family but two families? Like, how could you let that happen? So I had to really struggle for about a year and a half, 2 years of, man, how can you how can this happen? Which is weird, because I'm not a counselor, but people come to me after the show and they'll talk to me about serious stuff, and I'd be like, man, we have free will, and so people are going to choose to do things that are going to hurt you or going to change people's lives and stuff. It's how you react to it and how you rely on God. So I would say all the right things to those people, and then all of a sudden I was in the situation and I was like, where are you? Like, why are you leaving me? Instead of me taking my own advice and being like, hey, God's right here. He's going to get us through it. And he did. I can look back on it and now and be like, oh, yeah, he was there. I saw things that he did in me and my three boys' lives that kept us focused, kept us safe, kept us, through it all. It was a dark time.
That dark time in that valley, did you have shows booked during that time?
Yes. And so the second part of your question, I thought I was done. Like, I thought I would not be able to do stand-up, because I grew up in a very conservative church. I traveled around. I do mostly shows in churches. And I was like, nobody's going to hire a divorced comedian. Even though it wasn't my choice, I could explain, exactly what happened. I still didn't think churches would do this. Here's a weird deal. So I had done a marriage date night for this small church called Lakewood in Houston. And they had never done a marriage date night ticketed event before. And so I did it the year before my ex-wife left. And it sold out quickly. And so that night, they booked me again for the next year. And they said, we got to do this every year. Well, then my wife left, with this dude. And so I called Lakewood and I was like, hey, I got to let you know what's going on. And I thought, okay, this is the first of churches saying, yeah, we really can't have you. And Lakewood was like, well, we hate that for you, but would you come and talk about it? Would you talk about like this, like what you're going through? And I was like, you want me to talk about being divorced? And they were like, marriages are under attack. And, I forget what the percentage was at the time, but like 47% of marriages in the church were either headed for divorce or had divorced. And it was way more than I thought. And he was like, marriages are struggling, so I think it would be good for you to come and kind of talk about what you're going through and stuff. So I actually went, because my job is a comedian, so I got to be funny. So I actually started going to the Houston Improv and doing open mic nights to practice the single dad, divorce material to make that funny. And then I would have a positive message that I would tag on at the church show, at the Lakewood show. But I had to go, and I'd never done an open mic night before. And I called my friends Hawkins and Branyan and all that. And I was like, I'm doing my first open mic night. And they were like, oh, it's going to be addictive because it's so bad. And it was just the worst comedy. And when I walked in, this never happens, but when I walked in, the guy hosting it knew who I was. And so I was going to go under an assumed name, because I'm talking about being divorced, and it really wasn't out yet. And I was going to be Jack Dillon. And that was going to be my stage name. And as soon as I walked in, he was like, Bob Smiley just walked into my club. And I was like, oh, man. But he put me, because you're supposed to put your name in a bucket and they draw. So he just put my name up on the list immediately. So now all these comics that are having their name in the bucket, hoping to get drawn, and they all know each other and stuff, they you could tell they hated me because they were like, who is this dude walking in and just gets his name? So I get up and do my set. It goes well, because I'm 20, at the time I was 21 years into doing stand-up. It goes well. And when I got off the stage, all these open mic comics all of a sudden now are wanting to talk to me. And they were like, that was amazing. How long you been doing comedy? And I told the truth. I go, that was my first open mic night, which is totally true. Now I'd been doing stand-up for 21 years, and they were like, you're going to make it, man. That was so good. Your timing, and all that. So yeah, so I did that Lakewood show, and then I did a show in Michigan the next night, and I wasn't going to talk about it, but I was on stage, and sometimes the Holy Spirit just and so all of a sudden I felt like I need to talk about this. So I went into this whole thing, and I had this positive spin of don't go through this alone. If you're going through something, even if it's not divorce or any of that, like Satan loves to use isolation to get you alone and start messing with your mind. And so I talked a lot about that night about the importance of friendship and community. And as soon as I walked off the stage, I walked to my merch table, and there was this guy standing there, and he was like shaking, you could tell. And I was like, okay, here comes the hatred that I thought I was going to get talking about divorce. And as soon as I walked up, he grabbed my shoulders and he moved me over the side, and he goes, my wife left me 2 days ago. And I don't know who you are. I didn't want to come to the show, but my friend made me come. And I didn't think I would ever laugh again. And I definitely didn't think I'd hear a positive message. But man, you're right. I needed my friend to bring me to this comedy show. And that was very eye-opening of like, oh, maybe God can still use me in the comedy world. And churches seem to be more open about, what used to be this taboo topic. And so I just started talking about what I was going through and what it was like to be a single dad and what it was like to deal with, after 17 years of marriage, all of a sudden dealing with betrayal and, all that stuff. And I found that people needed to hear that other people were going through it, and they needed encouragement. So
yeah, some of the bits that you have that talk about the disorder in your home right before Sarah came along, you and the boys, and just what the house looked like and what the conditions were. It's some of your best stuff, and I don't want to cheapen your experience. It's just some bits, some laughs from it. It's more of what you said of the relational, way that you're able to minister to people now that have been through that, that can find some commonality with you, and you are like a therapist, in those respects, and showing people that there's a light at the end of the tunnel for all this. So now, 6 years now married with Sarah, and the boys are growing up and getting older. When you think about the next 6 years, once your youngest is out of the house, what kind of talks are you guys going through with what it looks like?
So when Mason moves out in 4 years, so I have 4 years to learn how to do a backflip. But I plan on doing a lot of backflips and celebrating. And so, yeah, Sarah and I talk about this, like, okay, what are we going to, be like, empty nesters and stuff. But even, so Dylan graduated, but he's still at home. So we still have 2 kids at the house. And then we had a kid live with us all last year. So we had 3 kids living in our house. And, but she's like, are we going to be, one of those couples that as soon as the kids are gone, like we lost everything? Well, the kids, Dylan and Mason, have been at church camp all this week. We've been paddleboarding. We've gone to the movies. Like and so every time we do something fun, I'm like, this is what it's going to be like. Like, I don't work during the day. Like, I'm home all week, and you can travel with me on the weekends and stuff. So I think we're set up. We love Mason. Is that the camera? Can I look too? So we're not in a rush for him to leave or anything, but I am not worried at all when he leaves. Because Sarah is a very outdoor, let's go on adventure, jump in the Jeep, go up, play pickleball, go paddleboarding, yeah, it's going to be fun.
One of the fun things that we did over there at your house one time was a promotional video. What's the one that you were sneaking into your neighbor's house and got thrown out?
Oh, that was for the men's retreat.
It was
a men's retreat, yeah.
So that's one of my fun shoots with you that was all, kind of improv, the whole time. And you were just casually talking. And then the big reveal is that this is not even your house that you sneak into and trying to get this message. So those have been really fun to work with you on. And we're just winging it, really. I mean, It's not a big plan or a huge staff there of producers and directors and DPs and lighting guys. It's just you and I and the camera.
Again, that's why I love like Bella Media, because I have these ideas but I don't know how to get them shot. I don't know how to frame them up. I don't know any of that stuff. And then you guys come in with all this creativity, and you guys were pitching add-on jokes and stuff too. And not only were you pitching add-on jokes, but also how to shoot it. So, to put Dennis in the chair and then have me pop up behind, like that was all your guys' idea. And I thought that was one of the funniest parts of the video. And so I love collaborating with people because it just is going to make a better shoot if we all pitch ideas, instead of one guy being like, this is how it's going to be. And, we got to have this and all that kind of stuff.
This is the final roast tonight. When you're ready.
Hey, Bob.
Hey, you signed up for the men's conference January 27th through 29th, right?
No, I got plenty of time to sign up.
No, you don't. It's going to fill up fast. It's in Giddings, Texas, where all the Bibles come from that you find in hotels.
That's a Gideon Bible.
Yeah, people from Giddings are called Gideons, and they make the Bible. Dennis, don't distract me, okay? You've got to come to the men's conference.
Well, I don't know if I can get off work.
That's always a problem for me, too. Oh, I don't work. Look, Dennis, excuses they're like that big mole under your left armpit.
What?
We all have them, and they all stink.
That's not wait, I don't have a mole under my...
So just sign up. I mean, there's gonna be skeet shooting. Oh, and the Texas Parks and Wildlife Organization has already said that this year, there's gonna be a ton of skeet flying around. I think they migrate from California. Just like Californians.
I don't think you know what skeet...
Oh, and there's pickleball, so you can get your aggression out by hitting senior citizen cucumbers.
That's not what pickleball... Is there someone else in charge of this thing?
I'm gonna be doing a full comedy show on Friday night. Oh, and Chris Flynn is gonna be there. He's gonna be emceeing, and he's gonna be giving away a ton of free stuff. There's lots of people who've been working really hard on putting on this amazing event. Man, seriously, you gotta sign up.
Okay, I'll think about it, but I don't like signing up. It's super confusing.
No, it's not. It's super easy. Just scan this QR code. I was just trying to invite you to the men's conference. That's all.
We got to shoot that Don't Worry Be Happy music video recently, and you were up for it. Because sometimes you pitch it and you're not sure if he's going to go for it, but you getting beat up by the small child getting kicked,
yes.
you're all over it. You're in.
Oh, yeah.
Kick me harder. Kick me.
Oh, I'm 100% in. Like, sometimes to a fault. Yeah, that's another thing that Sarah has brought wisdom into my life. She's like, you know what? It's you're kind of getting up there in age, so maybe it's okay to say no. I remember one time I was doing a pastor's conference, and they wanted to put me and this other comedian in a sumo wrestling suit. And so we would come, and we were both named Bob, so we were kind of playing off that. And then so we bounced out on stage, and we were going to hit each other and wrestle. Well, because he's my elder, much, much older, I thought it'd be funny. As soon as he hit me, I just fell straight back. And so I thought that would be funny visual. And we didn't practice this. They just threw this idea at us, and we just did it. And he hit me, and I, of course, did a perfect cartoon fall back, not realizing the back of the sumo headset was not padded. And I just hit my head, and it knocked me out for a little bit on the stage. And so I'm laying there, and they're thinking, wow, he's really into character. No, I was just out, So I am trying to be a little more responsible for what I say yes to, but my first inclination is like, yeah, let's go. That kid needs to kick me harder. Like, it's going to look really good on the video. It was fun, man. That was so fun.
Let's back up to that first break, or what were you doing before comedy, and then what led you to that first opportunity?
So I was getting my degree in elementary ed. I picked elementary for a couple of reasons. One, I already knew most of the alphabet, so I knew the classes would be easy. I remember I had two roommates. One was studying to be a missionary, and one was studying to be a doctor. And so one night we're cramming for our finals. And am I boring you? Like, I've got better stuff. I can tell a different story. Don't walk out.
I think bladders are full.
Yeah, okay. So I look over, and one roommate is studying Latin, and the other roommate is studying zoology and botany, those two classes, which was the two hardest classes. And they're over there, and they're just cramming, and they just, they look like Jeff Goldblum, just like, like just out. And one of them looks up, and he goes, Smiley, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm doing my final. And I was cutting out a letter A for my bulletin board. So my semester final was to make a bulletin board. So I did elementary ed. Also, I saw kids start. I'm sure it's gone on forever, but I was starting to see a trend of kids growing up without a male positive role model. And so I thought, well, I could be a teacher, and that would kind of be my ministry, is I could be a positive role model. So was going to be a teacher. Before I became a teacher, I wanted to see what it was like to make money, and teachers don't. So I had been doing photography with this family friend of ours. During the summers, we were shooting football team pictures and shooting corporate events and stuff. And so I was helping him. And so he wanted to hire me full time. So I decided I was going to work for him for 1 year, kind of make some money, get a little nest egg started up. And then I could start teaching, and I could pick a teaching job not based on finances if I was smart and saved money for a year. So I did that. At the end of the year, I was driving in Dallas on 635, and we're about to lose the kids. My pager goes off. And I look, and it's area code 615, which I didn't know was Nashville at the time. But I pull over to Cracker Barrel payphone. I call this number. I thought it was about photography. And the guy was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I used to go to school with you. Well, my junior year, they had a stand-up competition. And I wasn't going to do it, but first prize was $500. So in Abilene, Texas, $500 is like 6 months rent. So I was like, I got to do this. So I did the stand-up competition my junior year. I won, not because I was good. Everybody else was terrible. But I won. I won money and thought I'd have a great story to tell my grandkids and stuff. Well, he actually tracked me down. This is how he got my phone number. You know how they keep your money? Colleges keep they keep your number so they can call and ask you for money throughout your life. They had my number. He called, and they just gave him my number, which nowadays you couldn't do. But that's how he got my pager number. And he was like, hey, I saw you do the stand-up competition our junior year, and I'm now out in Nashville. I'm road managing this guy named Clay Cross. And we're about to leave for tour, and Clay said it'd be fun to have a comedian kind of entertain the crowds in between the acts. Do you want to come out on tour with us? And I'm just standing at a Cracker Barrel payphone, not realizing God's about to change my entire life. And I was like, okay. And so I booked a one-way Southwest airline, not a sponsor, flight to Nashville, got off a plane, got on a tour bus, and went out as a comedian. And they couldn't pay me as a comedian, but they hired me as a merch guy, but with the understanding that they really were hiring me because they wanted me to, entertain the crowd in between the acts and stuff. Wow. And so I would get up, I would open the show with a couple of jokes. I'd bring the first guy up, a guy named Chris Willis. He would do his set. I would do some more jokes, and then I'd bring up a band called Anointed. And then between Anointed and Clay Cross, I would do a merch pitch, and I'd wear all the shirts, and I would take them off one by one, and I had jokes for each shirt that I'd written. Like Anointed had just a shirt with a big A on it, and so I'd pull the shirt off, and I'd go, Anointed has a shirt with a big A. Some of you college kids, it's your only chance to get an A. You better grab it. Like dumb stuff like that. Halfway through this, I look back on it now, and I was like, man, I did not worry about offending anybody, but I was taking them off, and I'd stop halfway, and I go, can I just point out I am the only Christian stripper working the circuit nowadays? But with a body like mine, girls usually chant, put it on, put it on. So I'd said that for about 60 shows out there. But so that's how I got started. And Clay and I became friends, the headliner of the tour. And he asked me to stay on and do his summer dates. So I stayed with him and was doing his summer dates because he would get booked for like an hour and 45-minute concert. Well, you can't sing ballads that long because your voice goes out. So he would introduce me in the middle of a show, and I would do like a 15-minute stand-up bit. And everybody loved it because they weren't expecting it. So they get, free comedy along with this Clay Cross. So I did that, did a couple of festivals with Clay, and then that's when the Newsboys saw me. And so they asked me to tour with them the next year, really because they wanted me to do that product pitch. But then I got on.
This guy moves merch.
This guy moves merch, and the Newsboys were all about that. And then I got on tour, and the Newsboys love that when I get on tour, again, same with making videos. If I'm going to do something, I'm 100% in. So I was getting up early on the tour and helping the road manager train the security team. I was doing merch. I was doing like so many extra things. The boys didn't want to get up and do early morning radio, so guess who was sent out of the tour bus to go do early morning radio? And I was fine with it. So they liked my Peter Furler, who used to be the lead singer. He would always tell people, like, Smiley came from the same school that we did, the School of Hard Knocks. Like, he's willing to do anything. So they started using me on all their tours, and that's really kind of how my career started taking off.
New Zealand, right? Is that where they're from?
They're from Australia, except for Phil. Phil Joel is from New Zealand. And then now they have some Americans, Jody Davis, Jeff Frankenstein.
Did that accent start to rub off on you when on tour?
They hated when I did it. I think because it was spot on and it made them miss home. I think that's exactly why they hated it. Yeah.
Well, talk about Claycross, Newsboys, and then what was the progression of the next tours?
So then... So Plank Eye was the opening band for the Newsboys, and so then Plank Eye was about to do their first headlining tour. And again, I know as a comedian I'm not supposed to be good at business, and all my comedian friends live up to that. They're terrible at business, but I really do have kind of a business sense about me. So Plank Eye really wanted me to tour with them, and so I went into their management team and I was like, "Hey, you guys have to pay a merch guy to go on tour." So why not pay me as a merch guy? Because tours, the way they work, normally the opening acts, they don't get paid to go on tour with a headlining band. And a lot of times they have to pay to be on it. So there's never been a budget for, to have an opening act. So I went in and I was like, hey, Plank Eye really wants me to tour with him, so why don't you hire me as a merch guy? And so the manager was like, that's actually a great idea. And I was like, okay. Now you have to hire a road manager also. That's also another, salary and another person on the bus. Why not hire me to do road managing and merch? I've done a lot of road managing stuff on the Newsboys tour. You can pay me a discounted rate from the road managing salary, pay me the salary for the merch. So I'm really making like a salary and a half, but they're getting half a discount. And there's one less person on the bus, one less per diem and all that. So I really went in and sold. Now it was waking up at 6 a.m, working all day, and I was the last one on the bus. I had to settle out, do my reports and stuff. So I was getting about 4 hours of sleep for about 3 months. I think we were out for 3 months. So it was hard work, but I was in the entertainment business. I was making it happen.
Yeah, you're really hustling
Yeah.
and making yourself a linchpin in that organization. So
Yeah.
you're unreplaceable. That's incredible. And then from there, I know you did a lot more after that. You had some stuff with Toby Mac as well.
Toured with Toby Mac. So the Newsboys got this crazy idea to get rid of venues and just create their own venue. So the first tour we did was called the Love Liberty Disco Tour, where we had an inflatable dome. And we had 2 of them. So while we were performing one night in the inflatable dome, the other dome was being set up in the next city. And then, we would go to that one, and then the crew would tear down that one and take it to the next one. It was a nightmare. The dome fell down all the time. The fans would not work to keep it inflated. It tore up in Houston. A storm blew through and ripped it apart. I was doing an interview one time with Peter Furler, and they asked about that Love Liberty Disco tour that we did, and he goes, Peter said, yeah, Bobby and I were both on it, but it was a lot like Vietnam. We went through something really impactful, but we don't want to talk about it. And it was that's exactly the way to describe it. It was a nightmare every day. The crew was not great. The fans ran off diesel, but then one time the guy forgot and put regular gas in it. And there were so many times I'd be up there, and it was in the round, and all of a sudden I'd see the dome start and it's 3,000 people inside this dome. And so, yeah, it was insane. But so I did the Love Liberty Disco tour, and then they figured out we don't need a covering. Let's just do a stage, just an outdoor stage, and travel around and set that up. So that's what Festival Candia started. And Toby Mac was on that first one. That was because it was 11 bands and then myself. And I did all 3 years.
You were the headliner.
Yeah, I was the headliner. Yeah, I went on at 11:45 after everybody had left, but I headlined. No, I actually did tell Toby that one time because we'd done like 30 of them. But I would come out afterwards and go, put your hands together for Toby Mac. Please pick up your trash. Thank you. Have a good night. BobSmiley.com. I'd always, throw out. And so I considered myself headlining because I went on last, right? Like that's a headlining deal, even though it was announcements.
Absolutely.
But so I got to meet I got to meet pretty much all the Christian bands at the time. I just did a festival in Kansas, Oklahoma, and it was like I realized like I don't know hardly any of these bands anymore. But thankfully there were some guys from my time. 7 Day Slumber was there. Oh, the promoter came up and right when I got there and he was like, "Hey, do you want to meet somebody really famous?" And I was like, "Sure." And so he's like, "Come over here." And so he walks me over behind the tour bus where this black sedan had just pulled up. And he's like, "This is going to blow your mind." And we walk up and the window rolls down and it's Rebecca St. James. And, you know, she just has been famous forever. Her movie just came out and all this. And we're walking up and he's like, "I'm going to introduce you." And Rebecca goes, "Hey, Bob Smiley." And he turns to me and he's like, "You guys know each other?" And I was like, "We've done tons of shows together." So, yeah. But yeah, I was very fortunate to be able to like get into this business. And I was really the only comic out there touring with bands. And at the time, I didn't realize what a special thing it was. I thought, well, this is how people do it, you know.
There was a promotional thing with the Clay Cross tour that tapped into your worst fear.
Oh, yeah. So I'm doing a radio interview one morning, and you know it's on the tour bus going down the road, so it's noisy. I'm super nervous because at the time I thought doing morning radio, that's gonna make me. My career is gonna be set once I'm on Way FM, you know, or whatever it was. And and they would give me the number, and then I would just call and just have to ad lib. Like I never knew what we were doing. And we were about to play Kingdom Bound, this theme park in Cincinnati, Ohio. And so I'm making jokes about the tour. I'm talking about Clay. We're promoting the event. And they were like, "All right, well, we're going to take caller number 6. Caller number 6 wins a free fall with Bob Smiley and Clay Cross." And I'm literally on the air going, I'm sorry, what? And they were like, "Yeah, the Skyfall." And I was like, okay, yeah. And again, the comedian kicks in, and I'm like, "Yeah, caller number 6. I'm hoping their phone lines get disconnected immediately because the only thing I'm afraid of is heights. Like I can usually get to the second step of a little stair step to change the light bulb, but if it's a vaulted ceiling, my kids are going to have to change the light bulb. I cannot do heights. And caller number 6 won where they strap you in to a cable and then they pull you all the way up, like way up, and then you lock in and then they drop you and you swing out and back, and it was a nightmare. And that was happening 2 weeks after I did the interview. So for 2 weeks, all I could think about was, I'm going to die. I'm going to die in 2 weeks. I'm going to it was a nightmare.
The very first time that we collaborated, I think, was for Baby Born, and you had pitched the idea, and I'd mentioned it to Josh, and Josh was excited about it and said, "I want to go shoot that." And Josh had been following you previously before that, so I want to switch seats with Josh here in a minute and have him ask you some hard-hitting questions. But before we do, we don't have a sponsor for this episode.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
Hey, you've been listening to Bella Media, BobSmiley.com podcast, and we want to bring on our sponsor, The Adventures of Average Boy. The Adventures of Average Boy is a podcast. It's a book series. It's a way to change your entire life, and most importantly, your kids' lives. Adventures of Average Boy, there is a comedy article that appears in Clubhouse Magazine every single month. Also, there are currently 3 Average Boy books. The first 2, Devotions for Super Average Kids, books 1 and 2, are available at bobsmiley.com or Amazon or wherever you get your books. Those are comedy devotion books for middle school kids. And the third Average Boy book is Average Boys Above Average Year, which is a whole year of Average Boy just having crazy adventures, going to a new school. He deals with some bullies. That actually hit number 1 on the bestseller list in the Christian young adult genre on Amazon.
That's actually true. Like it came out and it sold out on Amazon. So the first month that the book was out, I couldn't even get copies of it. Okay, back to the commercial.
And I'm happy to tell you September 17th, the 4th book in the Average Boy series, Average Boys Above Average Summer, hits out everywhere where you get books. I don't know how to say that because I used to say it at Christian bookstores, but they don't exist anymore. But you can get it at Amazon, BobSmiley.com. Have I mentioned that, my website? don't think I have. We'll have to go back and listen to see if I say bobsmiley.com.
Wouldn't hurt to say that.
Yeah, but no, the new book, the fourth book, is coming out September 17th. So anyway, back to the show.
So you got the hard-hitting questions. So
I
it's
do,
like
I do.
Good cop, bad cop.
Mm-hmm. So how long before AI takes over your job?
What is today? Friday? I think maybe Tuesday. Yeah. It's funny because speaking of the fourth book that's coming out September 17th, Average Boys Above Average Summer, when I got the contract, in the contract, it actually said that I could only use 10% of the book that was written by AI. And that I had to actually mark the 10% of the book that was written by AI, which I'd never seen in a contract before. So that's how it's changing. It's changing everything. Like everybody, some of my comedy friends, I won't mention them, not that Hawkins is going to listen to this, but he'll actually use AI to come up with topics, and then he writes his own stuff, but he's using AI. Like everybody's using AI. So I think, yeah, maybe Tuesday.
It is a powerful tool, but I could see where it could come across as a little fake, if you will, if you're using AI to write jokes.
Yeah.
Have you played with it at all to try and
I haven't, but I did. So I did this horrible show at a water park that I just agreed to. Again, I say yes to everything. And so they put me on stage in front of a wave pool, which nobody wanted to hear a comedian. They were there at a water park. And so everybody, and there was only about 30 people, but they were all on inner tubes in the deep part of the wave pool. And I'm performing to an empty pool. And these guys, I want to try to keep it clean, but they had too much to eat, maybe. And we're just like, shut up, and then the worst part of the show was they turned the wave pool on halfway through. And so now the waves are forcing these people on inner tubes to float in front of me. I've been heckled a lot in my life. I've never been heckled so bad of seeing people try to like splash back away from me because they don't even want to get in my eyesight. So I did this, why did I tell you that whole story? I'm totally lost now.
Because we were talking about the AI, and have you ever tried it?
Because so as soon as I got off the stage and I was like, this is the worst show, like the worst situation I've ever been in, I called Hawkins and I started telling him, and he's like, I think that'd be a good bit. And I was like, yeah, probably. I need, some therapy first before I feel like I can talk about it. But, and so he ran it through an AI machine, Chat GP, whatever it is. And it spit out jokes for me. So right now I am working on a bit, and I'm actually using some of the premises from the comedy routine that it wrote about a water park. I'm just using some of the premises. So yeah, it's not to the point where it can write, a full hour of stand-up, but it does give you some good ideas of things that maybe you didn't think about before.
What's your favorite part, the writing or the performing part?
Performing.
Yeah.
I like writing because a lot of times I'm amazed at what, not amazed that it's good, but I'm just amazed at what comes out of my brain. Things that I didn't think that I would think of. Then whenever I sit down and write, that's when that's when my brain gets really creative. So I enjoy the writing process, but there's nothing like standing in front of people and just watching them laugh. Because again, laughter is a gift. So I just feel like I'm giving a gift to people. And so there's nothing better than just seeing people laughing, having that release. There's probably a lot of stuff going on in people's lives, and just see for a moment they can just stop and just be joyful. Man, it's the best feeling.
So I heard you saying that you started open mics at the Houston Improv.
Yeah.
What other comedy places have you done improv open mics at?
That's just it.
Really?
I started going, yeah. And it was terrible. And I started going even after I pretty much had my, full hour about being divorced, being a single dad and all that. I still would go back to the open mic night just because I love watching comics bomb. It is so bad. The very first night that I went there, I didn't know what it was going to be like. Yeah. I'd just been warned by my friends, and I'm sitting there, and the first guy comes up, and he kind of looked like a friend of mine named Darren Streblo. He looked like if Darren Streblo grew up near a nuclear plant. So it was like a mutated version of him. But he walks out, and he goes, well, I'm divorced, which I'm about to talk about being divorced for the first time, so I'm like listening. And he goes, my wife and I didn't see eye to eye. Like, I like video games. and she died. And it's just dead quiet in the club, except you hear one girl go, ugh. And I'm sitting in the back and I'm dying laughing, and I'm like, I am hooked. I am hooked. Bring me more of this horrible, terrible comedy. Yeah. So the Houston Improv is the only one that I did open mic night. Actually, that's not true. There was a restaurant here in the Woodlands that wanted to do an open mic night on Wednesday nights, and a friend of mine was hosting it. And he kept trying to get me to come to show the other comics that you could do clean comedy. And I finally didn't have anything to do on a Wednesday night. Our church service, for some reason, wasn't meeting. And so I was like, I called him up and was like, hey, I'll come over. So I came over there to this restaurant off Rayford, for those that are local. And it was a bar in the middle. They had a stage. They had a screen that was kind of like a bed sheet with a projector. They were showing Mission Impossible, the movie, but with the sound off. So the audience could watch Mission Impossible while they're listening to comedy. So perfect setup for a comedy deal. Also, there were no people in the restaurant except for comics that had driven up from Houston to do their 5-minute bit. So it was all comics that were working on their notes and not even listening to whoever was on stage. So I did that open mic night. I got up and I think I did like 8 minutes. And I even closed. I go, okay, that's 8 minutes. That's enough to know that I should really be appreciative of my career, that I don't have to do this. And all the comics laughed at that because they knew, like, yeah, we're all trying to get to that point where we don't have to do open mic nights. But yeah, Houston Improv was the only one that I did. But I did it for like 6 months just because horrible comedy is like crack to me. I just want more of it. I love sitting and just watching people, because I know what it's like. I know what it's like to, like, when you think of a concept, it takes a little bit to figure out how to make it funny to everybody else, because you're painting a picture in people's minds of what you see, and you've got to paint it in a certain way that they see why it's funny the same way you see it. So it takes trial and error to get to that point.
How would you test material before going to open mics?
Thankfully, doing churches, they give you an hour or an hour plus. So it took me a long time to get an hour of material. Like, it takes a long time, especially when you weren't pursuing it and you didn't know this was going to be your career. All of a sudden, I started getting booked. They were like, oh, he's with the Newsboys. He's got to have an hour. No, I had 30 minutes of stuff. So I had to really try to come up with an hour quickly. But then once I had an hour, it was easy to write a new bit and put it in the middle so I could try that out. And because you have nothing but gobs of time when you get on stage at churches, you can try out new stuff. And so that's, for a long time, that's how I did it, was I would just sandwich in between two bits that were really good and just try out a new bit and just see if it worked. And if it worked, keep it in. If not, take it out, rework it, and try it again later.
That's interesting. So you've been in this game for a long time. How has time from the beginning to now media changed for you and your career? Because you produce a lot of content for yourself.
Yeah, so media has completely changed it all. I remember I was mowing my yard and Tim Hawkins called me, and I remember saying to him, like, what do you think about this new thing called YouTube? Like, should we put stuff on it? Or is it going to burn material? Like, if you put your stuff on there, then can you do that stuff? And Hawkins was way ahead of the game. He was like, I'm putting it all on there. And of course he did. And he put some of his music videos, Cletus Take the Wheel, I think was the first one that exploded. He had the vision. I had a pretty good vision on MySpace. I got on MySpace super early and started and realizing, like, oh, I can talk to fans and I can gather fans that maybe I'm not doing a show, in Indiana, but I can talk to people in Indiana and make them like me, make them add me in their friend list and stuff like that. So that was the very start of, like, technology changing the way that we market ourselves. You used to get a VHS tape of a clip of yours, mail it out to churches, hope they watched it, hope they booked you. But now I can get to somebody in Africa right now just by posting something online, and then they'll see it. Like, it's changed everything. It's opened up all the doors.
So it's really helped your career?
I would say it really helped my career. It also does have some downfall of it, of now there's so much content that it's hard to to grab people's attention. So that's why I'm constantly putting stuff up there. I actually heard a podcast with a guy named Conan O'Brien. Yeah, he's like I don't know what he is, but he's got a podcast, and he said one time that he realized he was good at just a few things, and comedy is one of them. And so rather than try to do movies and try to do all this other stuff, he said it's like everybody's playing their instrument that they're good at. And so he decided he wasn't going to try to play a bunch of instruments. He's going to sit in the corner with his triangle because he knows how to play the triangle perfectly. So he just sits over there and he does his thing, and he hopes that everybody at the party eventually, or at least some people, go, hey, what's that triangle noise? I want to hear that. I like that. And then fans will find you. And I thought that was pretty good advice. So that's kind of what I'm doing, is I'm sitting over my little corner of social media, just playing my triangle and hoping people find me.
Well, you're doing a fantastic job, man. You've been making people laugh for years, and I know I always enjoy seeing your stuff and being around you and stuff, so you're a huge inspiration.
Wow, thank you. Can I get that clip? I want to send to my dad.
That's awesome, man. What would you say to the young comic that's inspiring to start their journey in their career now? What advice?
Do something else, at least for the next 10 years. I do not need the competition. Like, already it's bad. No, I have a lot of young comics reach out to me, and they'll say, what do I do? So my advice to them is write every single day. Even if you don't feel funny, just sit down for 10 minutes a day and write, because you never know, again, once that creativity kicks in your brain, you'll never know what you'll come up with. And if you're writing every single day, you're producing content, and you never know. I wrote a bit one time that I couldn't get to work, and I'd kind of given up on it. And then about a year and a half later, I was sitting in church, and it was about church childcare. And and all of a sudden I remembered this bit that I wrote. And I was like, man, I thought that was a funny bit. I'm going to see if I can rework it. And so I went through my notebooks and I found that bit again. And because time had passed, I rewrote it. And for a long time, it was my best clip on YouTube. Like most views, it's the one that people use to promo my comedy shows and stuff. And it was all from a bit that I wrote a long time ago. And because I had the discipline to sit down and write every day, I wrote that bit. Even though it didn't work, I could still go back later and take it. So I always tell comics, write even if you don't feel funny. Sit down. If your job is comedy, do your job every day. Don't take a week off and then maybe, I'll do my job today. No, do your job every single day. So sit down and write. And then I take every opportunity I can to get on stage. And I think that's good advice. Now, obviously, don't take a water park gig, ask more questions before you take a water park gig. But every time you get on stage, even if you bomb, it's going to make you a better comic, because you got to have thick skin. You got to, there's going to be trolls. There's going to be people making fun of you all the time. And so bombing does help you. So don't shy away from, any opportunity to get on stage.
What do you think has been some of the struggle, or if there is any struggles, I'm just curious, from a secular to Christian comedian?
Well, here's the deal. So I'm very outspoken that I'm a Christian. And so there are a lot of people that do not like anything to do with religion or Christianity or Jesus. So I know I'm going to have a target on my back. So I just go into it knowing that. But being a Christian is the most important thing. So I'm not going to change that. I just got to gear up and know that I'm going to get trolls on YouTube, just totally bashing me. And then if you go and click and look, they're part of an atheist group or, something like that. So you kind of know where that hatred's coming from. Back to the triangle thing. I'm not going to be for everybody, but the people I am for, I hope I make their lives a little better. So I just keep playing my triangle.
That's awesome, man.
Did that answer the question? What was the question?
Yeah, I don't remember, but it was still good. You sounded great.
Well, and Robert's really good at like editing, splicing things together, making it make
that
sense.
was great. So some of the ways that you make money is book sales, ticket sales.
So yeah, so I have a comedy career. So doing stand up is like the main one. The Average Boy series, I started writing that because my first CD, anyone? Yeah, okay, we got 2 nods. And the other guy's not even listening anymore. But so my first CD came out, and Focus on the Family got it, and they were like, this is funny, and we think it's funny for kids. Would you want to write a humor article in our magazine? It was supposed to be 1 article. It was a September issue, so I wrote a story about me going back to school and having a bad haircut, which was a true story. But as I was writing it, I thought about a cell phone joke that would work really good. Well, I didn't have cell phones back then, so I had to create a character. So it was basically me, but a modern day version of me. And so I just named it Average Boy, even though it was supposed to be one article. Well, they printed it. I was actually published in a magazine, which was one of my bucket lists as a kid. I wanted to write a humor article that was published somewhere. And all of a sudden, Focus on the Family started getting feedback from kids saying, hey, can Average Boy write more stories? And so it turned into a monthly column, and then it turned into the first devotion book, and then the second devotion book, and then we tried to get away from the devotion side of it, and then make it more just like a comedy book that still has a lot of spiritual stuff in it, but not like a devotion book. So we did it more like Diary of a Wimpy Kid, where Average Boy's full school year. So we did that comedy book. It did really well. So I started out just being a comedian, but this Average Boy thing has really taken off. And we, in 2019, in December, Focus on the Family came to me and was like, hey, we want to do a podcast, an Average Boy podcast, where families can listen to it, to have something to listen to with their kids. And we made it short, so it was like on the way to church, on the way to the grocery store or school. And I did the voice of Average Boy, which my voice is kind of raspy this morning, but when I first sat down, Average Boy is a junior high kid. So when I first started, I was like, hey, this is Average Boy. I made it high. And the producer was like, Bob, you can use your real voice. And I was like, yeah, but he's supposed to be a junior high kid. And he goes, yeah, we're good. Keep rolling. And I was like, So I do the voice of Average. So we did this podcast, and we filmed 13 episodes, and then we released it in March of 2020. Which I don't know if you remember, but that's right when the quarantine hit. And all of a sudden, the Average Boy podcast blew up.
Wow.
Because families were looking for. So I make a living doing comedy, and Average Boy was always kind of like a little side project that I was like, I hope it helps families. I hope it helps kids navigate, through. But now this Average Boy stuff, especially with the fourth book coming out, is becoming a big part of my career. So I do that. God's really thrown a lot of new stuff into my life. I actually did it here. I did the voice of a claymation animated movie that's coming out in December.
That's exciting.
Called Steal the Naughty List. So I got to be part of a claymation movie, which again, growing up watching the old claymation Davy and Goliath and that sort of stuff, I was like, oh man, I'd love to do that. I got to do that. I did a walk-on role for a TV show that's being filmed right now. And I did it so I could meet John Snyder, who was Bo Duke, another one of my heroes as a kid. And the film crew really liked me, and so now they've written me into the TV show. And so we're filming 7 more TV shows or TV episodes coming up. So there's a lot of different stuff that's related to comedy, but not actual comedy.
Yeah, it sounds real diverse.
Yeah, it's starting to spread out. So I don't know. We'll see.
That's awesome. What do you think about podcasts, the podcast format, and how could you think it'd be beneficial to individuals for personal branding or businesses?
I think podcasts is one of the greatest things ever invented. One, you have no idea how many nights I'm driving from one show to the other at 2 a.m. and I can't even get AM radio. And then all of a sudden I've got a phone that has, 4 hours of Gary Shandling, one of my favorite comedians, being interviewed, and I can listen to that. So I think podcast is great. The whole format of people feeling like people are going to be listening to this, not very many because it's, not a good podcast, but there's going to be about 4 or 5 people that are listening to this and they feel like they're sitting in this room right now hanging out with us. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what podcasts have. So to be able to bring your fans in to sit and feel like they're sitting having a conversation with, you and whoever is on the podcast is so valuable. So to answer your question, I think it's essential for entertainers, essential to anybody that's trying to get their brand or their voice or their message out in the world. I think podcast is the best way to do it. And
Perfect.
Just hope that they find you. And then as far as businesses, I don't know. I don't listen to a lot of business podcasts. So I don't know what it'd be about. I've never had a real job, so I don't know what businesses even do. But
well, if you're looking to start your own podcast, contact bellamedia.com.
You can find their information at bobsmiley.com. Also, always be promoting. I don't know if we talked about that, but
you are good at that. That's awesome, Bob. Speaking of promotions, I've heard some stuff about your merch. You have one with is it Jesus or something on the?
Yeah, I have a drawing of Jesus, and underneath it just said, "I never said that." My grandmother said long time ago when I was a kid, "How can we live out Jesus's words if we don't know what he actually said?" And at the time, I just thought, well, it's important to know what he said to guide you. But now I'm hearing Jesus be misquoted all the time, like all the time. The example I give on stage is I had a guy come up to me and he was like, "It's like Jesus said, with great power comes great responsibility." And I was immediately like, is that in first or second Spider-Man? I don't think that was his quote. So yeah, I made that shirt that has Jesus on it. It just says, "I never said that," because he gets misquoted all the time. And even, especially now, I woke up this morning and read an article because people are claiming that God's doing something that, and some people are saying, no, that's not how you interpret the Bible. That's not, it's like, but Jesus and the stuff from the Bible is getting misquoted a lot, or kind of just twisted to fit a narrative and stuff. So I love wearing that shirt, especially in airports. People walk up and be like, what does that mean? And I'll say, tell me some things you think Jesus said. And you'll hear everything from, separation of church and state, and, all that, God never gives you more than you can handle, and, all this kind of stuff. And it actually opens up a pretty good conversation of like, hey, let's look and see what Jesus actually did say. So yeah, I love that shirt.
That's awesome, man. I've got some ideas for you that you could expand to different markets. So I've heard your shirt only goes to like extra large.
I offer 2X.
You do offer 2X.
And
okay.
Because the guy that I get my t-shirts from is terrible, I have a 4X, and I think I have a 5X.
So
but only one.
You're spreading out into bigger markets.
I got to tell, I don't know how long you want this to go, but my favorite merch story, a friend of mine, Aaron Weber, he's a great comedian, and he's a bigger dude, and he carries like up to 5X t-shirts. And so a lady came up to his table afterwards one night, and she was like, "I wish my husband could have heard you. That was so great. I want to get him a shirt, but I don't really know his size. Like he's a big dude. He's a big, huge." And so Aaron goes, "Well, I have up to 5X." And she goes, "Well, yeah, that might work. I don't know. He's just so big." And Aaron goes, "Well, if it helps, I wear a 3X." And she goes, "Oh, okay, give me a 2X. It was such a perfect slam.
That's funny.
Like, it was great.
Well, man, I could talk hours with you, but I'm sure you have better things to do than sit here and talk with us.
No, I don't.
Okay, well,
no, I gotta pick the kids up from church camp at 2, but that's awesome, my only.
Well, thanks for coming in today, man. Like, seriously, I've been a longtime fan, seen you at camps, Newsboys concerts, and you've always brought a joy to my family's face, and we appreciate you for coming in today.
Yeah, anything for Bella Media. Like, I love you guys. You guys are doing great work. Is that what? You guys are doing great work for the community and around the world. So check out Bella. I'm not going to read that.